Hello, my name is Roland Waits. This video does not exist for hits or for money. I'm only trying to get the information out. A long time ago, somebody posted that said you should look into Greg Moore's crash. The horrific, probably the most horrific single-stop car crash in history. In October 31st of 1999, Greg Moore was in a crash that the car was sliding across the track. There was a access road that was actually recessed down in the grass. He was sliding across grass. The access road was recessed down in the grass and angled so that rain would drain off of it. There was a down part to the road and an up part from the road, and when Greg's car hit that, it bounced up. It went sideways like this. The tire dragged the ground, the rear tire dragged the ground, turned the car over. It hit an amazingly strong concrete and metal fence and bounced off of it, and he was killed instantly. So I didn't really think I would find much when I went after this. You know, I was like, okay, well, I'll look at it. And for years, I've just been sort of checking it. And I started seeing some troubling things. And the name of this video is How CART Killed Greg Moore and Why It Matters Today. Now, something that people need to know about Greg Moore was he was a very talented racing driver and very loved by everyone in the sport. He was a guy that embodied youthful exuberance and talent and skill, and yet at the same time he was probably one of the nicest guys in the paddock. Everybody loved this guy. Also to be known about this last race is that there was a $1 million purse for the winner of this race waiting. Whoever won the race was going to get $1 million. And a lot of people were sort of rooting for Greg to get that money. Well, the day before this race, something very bizarre happens. Greg is, he recounted himself. He is sitting on his little scooter in a parking spot, and a girl drives a truck around and runs right over him in the parking spot. And this is not like what they've said about what, oh, he was driving his scooter through the thing and a truck vehicle hit him. No, that's not what happened. That's not what Greg Moore said happened. Greg Moore's own words said that this lady, he was sitting in the parking spot and this lady ran over him, essentially. So that's really strange. I don't know if this was somebody that Greg knew. I don't know if the lady was upset at Greg for some reason. Maybe he wouldn't return her advances or something, or what the story was there. But it was not the innocent, he was just driving through the pits and got hit. Greg Moore's own words says that he was sitting on a scooter in a parking spot and the lady turned around and drove right over top of him. When in the process of doing that, Greg Moore's hand was brutally damaged. His right hand was brutally damaged. And all through this event, all I've heard is Greg Moore's had a broke finger. Greg Moore had a broke finger. No, Greg Moore did not have a broke finger. Greg Moore's entire right hand was compromised. It would be funny if it wasn't so damn tragic to look at the news reporter describe how Greg's entire hand has been immobilized except for these two fingers, and how his team has put a ball of rubber around the steering wheel so that he can put his two fingers on that ball of rubber to drive the race car at 244 miles an hour. He should have never been allowed in that car. If you look at the picture of his hand, because it's online, I'm not going to tell you where because they're going to take it off. his hand is swollen up like this. There is a hole in the top of his hand where it looks like the bone is actually sticking through. It actually looks like the fourth metatarsal bone is this bone right here. It looks like the bone is sticking through the hole. And there are large abrasions on his fingers here. And it's very clear that the only thing he can do is this, with this hand. You know, this ain't about being macho. This ain't about being, oh, well, drivers have raced with injuries before. No, this is what you use to drive the car. This is how you know if the front end is losing traction. This is how you react. You know, this is how you're able to make the movements you need to stay alive and to keep the car from going in the fucking stands. Because guess what? The year before this, Adrian Fernandez had a racing accident. And a wheel came off his car and flew in the stands and killed 3 people. So now here is CART officials overruling doctors telling Greg Moore he can get in a car, essentially driving it with one hand. He's driving it with one hand. Another thing people need to know about the Greg Moore accident is this is not the tale of one accident. It's the tale of 2 accidents. In the exact same place on the exact same wall. And people say this all the time. Richie Hearns on lap 4. He was coming behind a car. Now, there's a thing called the Hanford device that was introduced in CART to make the cars more competitive. It was almost like like what's in Formula One now. Only it's the reverse idea, where now they've got the DRS, which is a wing that opens up, which makes the car go faster. Well, in 1999 CART, they had a thing called the Hanford device, which increased drag behind the car by making a huge hole behind the car. And what this did was this allowed the car behind you to slingshot you. And what it did was you could drive all the way up the butt end of the car, and at the last moment whip around him, and you could fly by him because you gained so much speed. But the other side of the Hanford device was this. It made the car much more stable, much safer to drive. I was in shock when I checked this out. I mean, honestly, I lost a lot of interest in CART when several Formula One drivers came over to IndyCar, and they had been in Formula One for years, and they came over and just obliterated their bodies. I mean, they just, Nelson Piquet's accident makes me want to puke every time I look at the picture. So it was a weird thing too, because I saw an Indy 500 race where like 8 racers crashed, and they were all top flight racers. They all crashed on the same corner too. And all of them had the same thing. They had leg injuries. And I get mad at myself when I think about that, because we were conditioned to think that was kind of acceptable, you know. But anyway, Greg Moore's finger was not broken. Greg Moore's entire hand was compromised. His entire hand was compromised. He could barely hold on to the steering wheel at 243 miles an hour going down the straight. On top of that, right after this lady ran him over, he was given a IV of painkiller that night. And he was given a test to get out in the car, see how fast he could go. He was given a 6-lap test. They said, oh, he's doing fine. Let him race. So he comes in, and they give him another shot right into the hole where the bone in his hand is sticking through, to numb his entire hand. Now, have you ever tried to walk with a foot that's asleep, with your ankle flipping underneath your leg? That's what Greg Moore was allowed to drive with. Not only this, but being on those kind of pain relievers can induce a kind of euphoric response where you don't perceive the threats or the fears that you normally would to keep you out of situations that would get you killed. Now, I mentioned this is the tale of not just Greg Moore's accident, but 2 accidents. And they give us a blueprint of how to survive this type of crash and how to die in this type of crash. And it also tells us a story about how far CART would go to never tell the truth about something because of all the things that had happened in the past. And that really makes me most mad of all. Because, just tell the goddamn truth, okay? Please. Just tell the truth. And I don't think they told the truth about Greg's accident. I really don't. And they had their reasons, and they all suck. So anyway, let's get into this. His hand was so messed up, there's no reason he should have been let in the car. I'm sorry, there just wasn't. Especially since the year before, Adrian Fernandez had killed 3 people just by having a racing accident. They should have looked at him and said, Greg, you can't control the car. There's 100 pounds of force coming through that steering wheel. And you're going to be trying to control that with one arm, going 240 miles an hour. I got 100,000 spectators out there with their wives and their children, and I don't want you to drive into the stands. You cannot drive today. I'm sorry. Your season's over. You can start with your new team next year. That's what they should have said. But they didn't say that. And this idea of, oh, well, he died doing what he loved, and I don't want to hear that crap. You're supposed to be the limit. You're supposed to look at everything. You're supposed to let the athletes compete. But when there's a rule, and when something could potentially endanger the spectators' lives, you are not supposed to break that rule. And CART clearly broke the rule. Because Greg Moore's hand was a horrendous looking sight. It was swollen up this much. With a big hole in it right there. With a big cut in it right there. It required, I don't know if it was 12 or 15 stitches. So, putting a race car driver, any race car driver, not just Greg Moore, but any race car driver in a car going that fast is criminal. That was a criminal offense. That was criminal negligence. And that's how CART killed Greg Moore. That's how they killed him. Because they should have told him, no, you're not going to race today. If you get to see a picture of his hand, you will want to vomit in a trash can. And like I said, the reporter's assertions that, oh, they modified the steering wheel and he could drive a car like this going 240 miles an hour. It would be funny if it didn't kill him, but it killed him. So let's get into the accident because, Jesus Christ, they lied about everything in this thing. They actively lied about all this shit. Now, in Richie Hearn's accident, he comes up behind a car that has the Hanford device on. And you can see it because we get to see that whole accident happen. We don't get to see Greg Moore's in-car. But Richie Hearns is coming up behind a car. They're coming through the corner. And Hearns, unfortunately, finds himself in this jet stream of the Hanford device. And what this is he's coming around, this guy ahead of Hearn is coming around a corner, and he's spoiling the air with the Hanford device. Now, if Hearns is right here in the hole, there's a potential that he could drive through this. Now, there's also potential that the loading on his car would go away too. But he is right here in the turbulence, and Hearn drives up into the turbulent air here, which is spilling off of one side, the inside of the car, because when you go around a turn like this, okay, and you're in a race car like this, the car is obviously going around a corner, so what you get is you get a spill off of air to the inside of the car. And this creates a turbulent field behind the car. Well, Hearn drives directly up into the turbulent field, unloads his car, and the car just goes sideways like this. And when that happens, Hearns does something that's kind of bizarre, but the announcer that day seemed to think it was normal, and you know, we've seen it before. Hearns punches the gas all the way to the floor, and the tires start spinning, they start smoking like crazy. Okay? The announcer for that day said that this was normal for certain drivers, that they would, when the car started sliding sideways towards the, to keep it off the wall, they would punch it, drive down on the track, and then turn the wheel back to try to get the car to come back under control, instead of locking up all the brakes. Well, Hearn gets the car off the track, and what we see when he comes off the track is he's going sideways off the track, okay? And it's an amazing thing to watch, because you get to see the rear tire track all the way across the grass, and you get to see these 4 bounces. This is the under tray of the car hitting the ground. And right before he gets to this access road, which is what pretty much guaranteed Greg Moore would die, the car turns. Now, part of the reason that Richie Hearns gets this this type of turn down here is because of what he does right before he comes off the track here. He actually slams on his brakes here, and you can actually see on the in-car, you can look at the white letters on the tires, and right about here he locks up the tires. You can see all the white letters on the front tires stop, and it's just sliding, sliding, sliding. And he gets very blessed, because as this is going, this is the rear rims. The rim on the left side digging into the grass as it's bouncing. And what that does is, it turns the car. It turns the car just in time, so when he goes across here, the car is not sideways. The car is slightly sideways, but it's not completely sideways. Also, he misses this one little spot right here, which Greg Moore does not miss. Because here on the access road, the dip is not so much. The grass is a little bit less high, and the car does bounce, but he lets go of the brakes, lets the car turn itself around, and he hits the wall flush. He comes out here and he gets out of the car, and he's blessed. He's unharmed. And people like to cite this accident, and they go, well, Richie Hearn crashed and there was no problem. Like saying that they're trying to make some sort of equivocation to what happened to Greg Moore. And I would assert to them that that actually proves the point that Greg Moore should have never been in the car. Because if he'd have been in the car, this whole side of his body would have been telling him things the whole race not to do. But instead, he was high as a kite on painkillers. His hand was numb. He was extremely ecstatic to be in the race at all. He was going after $1 million purse for a win. It was the last race of the season.